Joining us now is the voice of the Cougars, Greg Wrubell from San Francisco via Zoom as he prepares to call 12th-ranked BYU women's soccer at USF tonight on BYU Radio. He'll be in Pullman, Washington this Saturday for BYU football. Greg, let's start in the first location. How's the Bay Area forecast today?
Forecast is for 50s and precipitation. And right now it's 50s and precipitation. So.
Let's talk about the wallpaper there in the hotel. That's quite the splotchy design.
Yeah, whenever I end up on the road and doing these hits with you guys, we got to just, take what comes for the background, right? And
this is not a Zoom
today's
choice.
Today's background motif is a little splotchy. Yeah.
The color scheme is right, though.
That
matters.
BYUS color. I like that. Yeah.
All right, Greg. Of course, again, soccer tonight, but let's focus on football. And specifically, what type of Washington State team do you expect to show up on Saturday afternoon against BYU after Wazzu fires head coach Nick Rolovich and 4 assistants yesterday?
Including Mark Weber.
Including. And, Kalani brings up a great point last night on the coaches show. BYU was in a similar, not identical, but a similar boat for a couple of big games last year. They were missing, let's just say, not entirely accurate, but close to half a staff for the Boise State game and the UCF bowl game due to COVID protocols last year. So BYU went into those 2 pretty big games having to kind of, reshuffle assignments and make some last minute adjustments with guys they thought would be there and weren't. Again, not exactly apples to apples here, but you can see how teams respond and staffs respond and duties shift. And what did BYU do in those 2 games? Like lights out, right? So what you have to do is expect Washington State's, efforts to be redoubled, and don't be surprised if they come on out and look good. Again, everything says they shouldn't, but let's keep in mind, defensive play caller still there, offensive co-OC still there. And now, granted, his play calling duties were taken away a few weeks ago, but he'd been doing it to start the season. Now, they were struggling then. We're playing better now without him doing it, but he's back to doing it. You can get by with those guys having done their jobs and are doing the same jobs they've done. So, it would be wrong to say that or presume that the program is going to fall apart here before the BYU game, because BYU's shown how it can be done. Now, missing the head man is a big deal, clearly. Maybe some players, might take a little longer this week to get themselves mentally right where they need to be. So there could be some lag from individuals here and there. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm looking at what BYU had to deal with and showed how they could deal with it, and saying, don't be surprised if Wazzu figures out a way to look like a decent football team on Saturday.
Yeah, and it almost reminds me of 2013 Washington. Marcus Tuiasosopo's the head coach in the Fight Hunger Bowl, and they showed up in that one. 2015, a lot of drama on campus with Missouri. The game's neutral, but Gary Pinkel says he's stepping down at the end of the year. Missouri won that game. So, yeah, hopefully BYU shows up and plays well. And I think we agree that BYU is likely going to bounce back in this one, given the way the last 2 weeks have played out, that this Cougar team is motivated down the back 5 to finish strong because, like we've been talking about, there's a lot to play for BYU still.
Yeah, and to get to that point, but to finish up the previous point, you referenced the bowl game with the interim coach. A couple of NFL teams just last week didn't have their head coaches there, or play callers there on the sidelines, and both those teams won games. Arizona Cardinals minus Kingsbury, Las Vegas with a new coach minus the Gruden thing on a weird week for Vegas. So yeah, teams find a way. Now, BYU in bounce-back mode, absolutely. I mean, back-to-back losses. Let's just say right now, you guys would agree, I think Baylor's the best team they've played this year, right? Yeah. That was a really good football team, and BYU got really, challenged up front, both lines of scrimmage for sure. And the injuries on the D-line did not help at all for BYU last week. And being down a couple of offensive linemen again still didn't help at all last week. So if offensive line health returns, they might not still be entirely where they need to be on the D line right now, but I really do think there's that bounce back mentality that has to help at this point. And I think, you can expect to maybe put some heat on Wazzu in areas that might challenge them in a week of turmoil. And maybe that's part of the game plan as well for BYU this weekend. But it's frying pan to the fire in a lot of ways, because you've got to play well here, because on the flip side of it, and they don't look beyond this week. But you've got Bronco and one of the best and most explosive offenses in the country coming into your place the next week. And so you don't want to see things start going, truly sideways here. And so I think it's a big week in a lot of ways because of what comes right after, too.
The voice of the Cougars, Greg Wrubell, is with us on BYU Sports Nation. He's in San Francisco getting set to call BYU women's soccer. We'll talk about the 12th-ranked Cougars in that regard in just a moment. But let's continue on with this bounce-back opportunity for BYU football, Greg. They take on Washington State again with a chance to win their fourth Power 5 game, which has never happened in an individual season, certainly not in independence. What else is BYU playing for besides a little bit of history this Saturday and for the remainder of the season over the final 5 games?
Yeah, interesting note, too, that fifth game against Wazzu, right? But none of the previous 4 have been in Pullman. So the first time they played was in a bowl game down in San Diego, and then it was back-to-back home games when you could do that kind of thing back in the late 80s and 90s. And against the Pac-12 or Pac-10 opponent back then. And then you had the game in 2012 to open the season, the first game of the Mike Leach era in Provo. So fifth game, but first in Pullman. So it's kind of interesting. And I forget what you even said after that.
No, it's okay. I mean, they're playing for a fourth Power 5 win, but
what are they playing for?
Yeah.
I think it's 10 wins. It's to get ranked. It's to play in and win your bowl game. So there's some things still in play. The bar kind of moves, right? When you're an independent, you stay perfect as long as you can. Then that first loss comes, and you say, well, we can stay in the NY6 mix if we kind of win out at this point, stay a 1-loss team. Then the second loss comes, and then you realize, well, we're probably trying to play for that 6th win, get bowl eligible, try and find double digits, and play and win a bowl game. So the targets kind of move around a little bit when you're an independent. That's kind of where BYU's at right now. They've got the 2 losses, trying to right the ship and make sure they get to a good place here, because we all know that they're playing at a bowl game. I mean, like that 6th win is there, and that 7th win is likely already there. Those are kind of gimmies. And so you're going to be a bowl eligible team. You already know where you're going to go and what conference you're going to play, unless something unusual happens. I mean, if BYU to get on a crazy roll and finish without any more losses, there could be some reshuffling. But for the most part, you're kind of ticketed for where you're going. So things are out there that kind of say there are some bars yet to reach, and I think we hit them. Yeah.
To me, this season is validating not only last year, but that BYU could handle a Power 5 schedule. And BYU is going to play a few more Power 5s, obviously. And here we are 2 years away, right? Under 2 years, I guess, for BYU to the Big 12. Now, the Baylor game was an individual game. That's not what I'm referring to for those who are going to come at me on Twitter. I'm talking the full 7. It feels like, okay, yes, if BYU can be an 8+ win team in the Big 12 regularly and occasionally challenge for the title in a special season, now we're talking about the football that we're hoping BYU is going to be able to play in the Big 12. What have you seen from this season in regards to sort of validating what we felt like BYU was, but now has a chance of showing, okay, when we play a bunch of Power 5s, we can do okay?
Yeah, well, I still feel that they showed by the way they started the season, and even how they competed against Baylor, that they're going to be a good fit. They're not going to be fish out of water yet. I think Kalani alluded to this too on his show last night. When you go from high-level G5, which Utah was, to P5, there's that learning curve and feeling out period where you don't just step right in and win titles. And so there has to be expected kind of that ramp up to where you are where you want to be and need to be. But I don't think it'll take BYU a ton of time to get there. In fact, I think even these 2 years of transition will be helpful in getting BYU into a spot where they can compete immediately to be in the mix in the Big 12. But there's no doubt that what BYU saw down on the weekend in Waco on both lines of scrimmage is a pretty decent indicator of the kind of line play you need to compete in and win games in the Big 12. We'll all be fascinated to see what it's like when Baylor takes on Oklahoma, and to a lesser extent Texas, although Texas is kind of in the middle of the pack right now with their losses. We want to see where Baylor goes from here, because our belief is that's the best team BYU's played, and a team that could challenge some of the best teams in the Big 12 after a 2-7 season last year overall. So let's see how Baylor does. That's a pretty good indicator. That said, I want to go back to this point. I thought BYU was kind of into a game that became a bit of a shootout after that first quarter. and really was a matter of just answering scores. And you look back at it, and BYU missed a field goal on a possession they had inside the 40 after a sack. They ended up taking a long field goal, missed it. They had a strip sack giveaway when they were going in the other way. Those are 2 point scoring opportunities that, had they resulted in touchdowns or points of any kind, you would have kind of hung around a little longer. Things flipped pretty weirdly and quickly with the strip sack, the onside kick. Those are kind of sudden change moments, but I don't feel like BYU was outclassed, blown out, not competitive at Baylor at all. And yes, you allow 303 rushing, you're probably going to lose that game. By the same token, guys, if you average 7+ yards per play on offense, which BYU did,
pretty good.
And if you're 174 in pass, and if you're 174 in pass efficiency, which BYU was, you expect to win that game. They moved the ball. They moved the ball with big plays against speedy defenders. They were in the game. It was a sudden change game, and those things we just talked about kind of took it where it went. But it wasn't like, oh, this is something they're going to have to really have to adjust to. They'll be good, and they'll be right there.
The Cougars will try and snap that back-to-back losing streak when they take on Washington State. Okay, now to BYU women's soccer, up to number 12 in the latest United Soccer coaches poll. The Cougars taking on San Francisco tonight. We know how explosive they have been at home. Greg, what do you expect from the offense, and how many goals should we anticipate tonight on the road at San Francisco?
Well, I haven't personally called a win yet at San Francisco. I've made 2 trips here, and they were both losses in 2015 and 2017. So my personal recollections aren't great here.
And you're a big jinx guy,
BYU, too. What's that?
And you're a big jinx guy, too.
Oh, yeah, I'm all about that. I'm saying I haven't experienced what it's like to win a game here yet. BYU comes here, they play lower scoring games. Again, they won the last one here. I didn't do that one in 2019. I got 15 and 17, and those I think were both 2-1 losses, I think. Anyway, so BYU's not played some of its best soccer in this venue. But what has happened is the Cougars have gone on the road already in league and opened at Gonzaga when the Zags were ranked and beat them 6-1. That was a game BYU needed to show they could take what was happening at Southfield and translate it a bit, because they hadn't won a road game before that night, and they haven't played a road game since that night. But that one they can really kind of hang their hat on a little bit and say, that's who we are. We showed who we are when we went back home and did the same thing to the next 3 teams. I mean, they've played 4 WCC games, plus 23 in goal differential in 4 games, 25-2. This team is rolling right now. I mean, they're playing incredible offensive soccer. And so what I want to see, what I'm personally hoping for, is that it swings over to the Bay Area tonight, and they play that kind of game in a venue where historically it's lower scoring and not great results. And so, not truly a monkey on the back situation, because they have, I think they've won 9 of 11 meetings against USF all time. But at this particular venue, playing their best soccer and highest scoring soccer hasn't always been the MO. So I'd like to see that tonight. But it's just crazy how prolific this team is right now. I think 15 different players have scored on this roster right now. It comes from all over. And to have 2, dynamic players like Kayla and Cam with the numbers they've put up, just ridiculous numbers for 2 players on the same team. This team is rolling right now. And this is as high as ranked as as highly ranked as they've been all season, even after suffering a pretty tough loss at home before league play began. So they got ramped up in a hurry, and it's fun to watch this team right now, just lighting it up.
Greg Wrubell is in San Francisco. You can listen to him live on BYU Radio 107.9 FM and the BYU Cougars app tonight, 10 Eastern, 8 p.m. Mountain Time. Greg, thanks for the time. Great to talk with you.
Always a pleasure. See you guys.